Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Philly Old Head Review. Today, our guest is someone I've known for uh, what? How old am I? 30 years, 32 years. I've known him for 32 years. Jeez, Louise, time is flying. Uh, I met him during my time in the military when I was a younger man, uh, just turned 18 years old. Um, so I'm gonna let him introduce himself, and then we'll talk a little bit about his early life, his career, and where he is now. So go ahead and introduce yourself there, young man.
All right. Well, as Omar stated, that we met many years ago. My name is Craig Hilzendager, originally from North Dakota. Currently in Texas. Let's see. When I met Omar, I think I was 12, 13 years old.
Something like that. I was 18.
So yeah, so we have known each other for many years, and then there'd be a decade or so that goes by where we kind of lost contact, and then again we kind of reestablished contact. So that's currently where we're at now.
Yeah. So, like I said, I met you when I was 18 in the military. I met you through your sister actually, Tammy, and she wanted me to kind of mentor you a little bit because like myself and yourself, there was no father involved, and just your older brother, your mom, Donna. Uh, how was that? Talk a little bit about the mentorship aspect of our relationship, if from what you can remember.
Sure. Well, I remember it. Our initial relationship is being very positive. I really appreciated the time and the attention that you were able to provide and show, and then also kind of lead through example there. It was kind of in a time of, I don't know, if you will, darkness growing up in that period. We just kind of moved within I think a year or so at that point from another town, and didn't really know anybody. And like you said, the father figure was missing out of the picture. So what was available were essentially bad examples of what that type of leadership or mentoring figure should be. Right? It was either folks actively on drugs and alcohol, or just non-existent at all. So I distinctively and finally remember driving around in a Mazda 323 and going out through the
Yeah, I still remember the plate number for that thing, BOH 811, man.
Yeah, and trust me, from where we're coming from, we were driving around in a 1969 Ford Galaxy, right, that barely ran, and when this shiny gray Mazda 323 with the wheels and the bra in the front of it all done up and sparkling, it was something to behold. So
Yeah. So at that time, we were in, like you said, Minot, North Dakota. There weren't a lot of residents of Minot per se outside of the military that looked like myself. So at that time, I don't recall, but was I the first person of African descent that you had the pleasure of interacting with?
No, but it was few and far between. I'll put it that way.
Right.
There's just not a whole lot of diversity.
Right.
In North Dakota, I mean, the diversity ranged from either Norwegian Lutherans or you got German Catholics. That's the extent of the diversity usually, and then you have the Native American aspect of it as well. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of diversity up there, and to include obviously the cultural aspect of it as well. So
Right.
But I can honestly say I never, like at a first meeting, I never looked at you as as an African American. I just looked at you as this person that my sister was dating at the time, and it was something as an intrigue, if you will. So,
Right. Right.
and I think it was later on then that concept kind of like fell on me, I think, a little bit.
As you got older.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because as you point out, there wasn't that many folks up that way, right?
Yeah. 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 So as time went on, how did that, or how did our interaction shape your views of race relations in America?
Again, it wasn't for years later until I started kind of traveling around a little bit more, how I
Yeah.
saw that is a problem. Like I didn't even see it as a thing. Like it wasn't even on my register as something, right? And that when you hear folks learn about or say that that aspect is a learned behavior, that division, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that's absolutely true.
Right.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I know it.
Specifically with your relationship, my relationship, it opened my world up to a different perspective, if you will. Listening to rap music, right? Listen to somebody that had a Philly accent, right? That had a worldly view rather than the prairies of the Dakotas was
Right.
something that I kind of fed off of that and like longed for that cultural interaction and just bigger awareness, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, trust me, cultural diversity and understanding it. And me coming from Philly, going to North Dakota, you definitely have to have open mind and the ability to adapt to your, surroundings. Um, but your mom, I was a little nervous from, with the first introduction, and Tammy was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. My mom is cool, and Donna was cool. You know what I mean? She made me feel at home. I could come over anytime. Uh, so I was happy I had that. Being young and going through my own things at that age, it was good for me to be able to have, like not a family, but not my own family, but somewhere where I could feel comfortable while I was there.
Of course.
So as time went on, you've done some what I would look at as some positive things. So in your career now, you're flying helicopters, right?
That's a part of it, yes. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about early on. I want you to touch on early on when you first started flying helicopter, when you went to school and you learned how to fly. Tell us about that job that you had out in Washington State.
Well, I'm not specific which job you're talking about. I've had a few jobs here, so I'll back it up even before that. So the bug that I got as far as aviation started actually in Minot there, seeing the helicopters and the Hueys flying over that were associated with the Air Force Base there. And, but it was always something that was unattainable. It was people that had higher educations or something like that. That I always felt like growing up, right? It was somebody that was entitled to be able to go out and do that. Is how I felt, to be quite honest. So it was something that wasn't. Yeah, it was something that you thought would be cool to do, but it wasn't something that you felt that was attainable for whatever reason that was. Right? So I worked the standard jobs that were available, working at car washes, mechanics, construction. That was a big thing growing up. And if anybody's unfamiliar with North Dakota, it's like hell freezes over there in the wintertime. I mean, so everything, essentially, all outdoor activities will shut down, like construction. So that forces you to either go on employment or work, try to find different work over the winter. So in doing that, I got hooked up with an oil exploration team out of Canada, and we started traveling around the United States doing oil exploration. And in doing that, we used helicopters to transport our people and equipment when we were out on the job. And that's kind of where I felt like, this might actually be attainable to kind of do this. So start trying to save up some money and try to figure out a way to go to school to figure this out. So in 1997, this is obviously pre-internet and all that fun stuff, at least at the normal level of attainable internet. Went to school out in Oregon. I think I was out there for about 10 months going to school. And then proceeded to get a flight instruction job right away at the school I was going to after I finished all my training. And then got a job at a different flight school up in Washington State, a little bigger school, busier.
Right.
And from there, it was doing logging jobs at a different company, firefighting, construction, that sort of thing with helicopters. And then went from that to sawing. We had a saw that hung underneath the helicopter. It was like a 150-foot saw. And we traveled all along the east and south, trimming trees along power lines and pipelines and roadways and railroads. And then there's a handful of jobs in between there as well, that kind of some contract work. And then went from that, which kind of now, I'll fast forward to where I'm at now, because my wife and I got married in 2000, and I think it's 2002, we found out that we're going to have a baby.
Uh-oh.
So that type of work, is not very conducive to having a successful family, because you're gone traveling the majority of the time. And at that time, if you were going to do any sort of helicopter aviation that you afforded you any sort of home life, it was going to be doing EMS type work where you could be home every day or every night. And so I got a job in South Dakota, actually doing EMS, did that for 13, 14 years. And then got a job down here in Texas doing search and rescue, firefighting, lost missions, and to include EMS work. Did that for 5 years, and then as I was working, promoted up to a senior pilot, instructor pilot, check airman, to give check rides for other pilots. And now it's been a little over a year, and I was promoted to the director of operations now for our organization. So,
well, congratulations! Congratulations for that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's kind of, like I said, why now it's a part of what I do.
Right.
As far as flying, the majority of what I do is the day-to-day logistics, operation stuff, and managing, which in between all that, I also went and got my bachelor's degree in aviation business administration. And while I was doing that, I really became interested in the leadership aspect of it. And that's kind of where I'd like to kind of continue to focus my future endeavors, if you will. So
now, didn't you have the opportunity? I swear I heard that you had the opportunity to fly a VIP out in Washington State at one point in time.
Yeah, we did do some charter work out there. Where transported Bill Gates, Martha Stewart. If you're gonna throw names around, that sort of culture back in.
How was that? Were you in a little in awe, or was it just like, oh, I'm just,
you saw where we grew up, right? So like that sort of stuff, like when you don't have money, it doesn't really, that you're okay without it. So folks that have a bunch of it, it doesn't really impress me.
Right.
So
you stay, of course you stayed grounded and stayed humble and stuff, but when you typically you always hear little stories about the crazy, filthy, rich people and some of their persona, attitudes, So I was just always curious how was that experience when you had that opportunity? Were they just was it like a quiet ride? Did they interact? Did they treat you well? Did they treat you like crap? You know what I'm saying? Like, how was that?
I would say it was just overall, it was just kind of benign.
Okay.
There was nothing, no, there wasn't any really, I would say, disrespect through that interaction. It was just, they were there to be transported, and I was there to be their bus driver, if you will. So there wasn't any expectations either way that I would say that was one side or the other. So
Yeah, yeah. So since you've obtained your current position, and you talked about uh, getting to those higher echelons of leadership, and I'm sure you'll do it. Um, Looking back on, like I said, your early life, what can you talk about to encourage or advise people who came from humble beginnings? Maybe they still haven't figured out what they want to do. Um, what advice could you give them as far as not giving up, um, staying away from the crowd, staying motivated to do positive things? What can you say to them?
sure, well, there's a whole bunch. I mean, as you know, numerous people have written books on this and are probably more well versed than I could be. But the basic principle that I've kind of used is set yourself small goals. Like tomorrow, what could I do better tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Right, make your bed. If you're fortunate enough to have a bed to sleep in that night, wake up in the morning and be grateful for it. Make your bed. Start off with some gratitude, knowing that somebody else might not have a bed. Right, somebody always has a worse situation than you do.
Absolutely.
The other component is use the examples around you. I don't care where you're at or who you are, you're going to have examples, and they might not always be good examples, but they're going to be examples. But try to discern between what's a good example and a bad example to get you to where that goal you want to take that goal to. And then have a long-term goal. And then use those examples to kind of propel you to get to achieve those long-term goals and know that it is possible. And I think that's the other component to it is if you wake up tomorrow and you make your bed and you finish that goal, well, now you know that goals are achievable and continue moving in that direction. So just have the faith and the trust that it is obtainable.
Right, right. And never give up. And no matter what negative forces are around you, whether it's close family or your community, you can always do better than what you're doing.
Absolutely, and that's you're kind of hitting on an important point there, Amar, is that you can't always control your environment that you're in, but you can control your action in that environment, and that's an important piece that I think a lot of people forget. And the whole social media aspect of that is making that even harder these days, with everybody having their own micro solution to a macro problem, if you will, and then having their soapbox to just shout that singular opinion out all the time, and to think that it's more important than anybody else's if you keep saying it more and more and louder than everybody else. I think that's kind of a dangerous direction that we're going into.
So I appreciate you meeting with us here today. I want to tell you, if I haven't told you, I'm very proud of you. Where you came from and where you are today. I want you to keep up the good work. Keep taking care of the family, the kids, and just keep being a positive force and give back where you can.
Well, thank you, Amar. I appreciate it. Very blessed to be where I'm at with the wife and kids that I have and the position I have, and to have mentors like you that kind of help me get in that direction. So thank you.
I appreciate you. Love you, man.
Love you.
Talk to you soon, okay?
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.